To work with this person.
Right.
I'm starting to, I just did a second ago.
Last morning.
Yeah.
I don't know where our other tripod is.
This week is the week.
Really?
No, that's why we got the.
That's all right.
That's why we got the one meant for like the 1980s, like big recorder.
Oh my gosh, that's the hardest
Looks
thing.
like Space Brothers.
Exactly. Yes. He's gonna dig up samples.
Wait till we launch it.
Hey,
Hey Wayne, you're looking
festive today.
festive, that's
Well, we have the
singing
opposite.
Christmassy, but that doesn't capture the Star Wars part.
That isn't, yeah. This isn't quite the, yeah. It's in the genre. We're in the genre.
Yes, you're looking festive and
Geeky. Yeah. Nerdy at the same time.
geekily festive.
Geekily festive.
Festively geeky.
There we go. Wow. You should like trademark that one. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I like that. Yeah. Well, that was kind of the look I was going for. I have a tea.
You nailed it.
And my wife just shook her head when she saw that one when I brought that home. And I also brought. I had another. It's a Star Wars Christmas shirt as well, and it's Darth Vader and a stormtrooper, like kind of like those old pictures you get at JCPenney's where you'd have somebody with their hands on their shoulder and like looking off in the distance. Yeah, that's another good one. I'll have to wear that. Again, just shakes your head.
All I have is like.
Hey, but that captures it. That's good.
I've got mine with it's a T-Rex wearing a Christmas sweater with
Yeah. See, you should have worn that.
I know, I felt very disappointed when I saw it. I'm like, oh
You should have
no.
worn that next year. All right. Well, we'll get started then. Oops. I gotta turn off the music. Here. Come on. There we go. And well, welcome to the last active teaching lab of the semester. We're so excited you're able to join us today on this cold, wintry morning. Just a couple announcements before we get started today. So just a call for proposals. I have one or two spots left for next semester. We're looking for some speakers. So if you have an idea of something you think that would be great to talk about, or you know somebody else who would be interested, please forward their name on to me or contact me yourself. We will have a couple activities today, so especially if you're online or you just haven't joined the class yet, this is the URL, though that is also on the handout as well. But if you're online, you just click pause right here and enter that information right into the browser. Also, just again, time is running short. By Monday, you need to be registered for the Teaching and Learning Symposium, which is coming up on January 9th. So Teaching and Learning Symposium, January 9th. Registration should be by December 15th, just so we can order food and get an accurate food count for everyone as well. So that's coming up. It'll be right here at UW Milwaukee, right in, which is it? Is it Lubar Hall? So, yes, Lubar Hall. Okay, if you are in the audience or you're out on the internet, I need some help, you have a question, you want to make a comment, contact Kathy Pinkowski. There is all of her contact information right there, and she'll also be monitoring the YouTube chat as well. Yes, and so today we're going to be talking about organizing a Canvas course with Nathan Young. Just as a brief introduction, Nate Young is a lecturer in the Department of English and an academic editor. He has taught courses at Loyola University Chicago, where he has received his PhD in English literature. He currently teaches courses in technical communications, humanities for STEM majors, and health writing. And he comes to us today to show us his experience in course design strategies on a lot of different platforms and kind of explaining what he's been finding out about Canvas, especially as being able to compare. So welcome, Dr. Young.
All right, thank you.
Next.
So, thank you all for coming, brave and cold. Thank you for listening in at home.
thank you for everyone watching in the digital afterlife on YouTube. And thank you, Cedal. This is the last lab of the semester.
Yeah.
So thank you for all the work that you've done all semester long. I think that from what I'm reading, some of the stuff we'll talk about today intersects with the previous week.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get some good discussion points going there. Yeah, as mentioned, I work with 4 content management systems at this point. When I was at Loyola, we started with Blackboard, then we transitioned to Sakai. Here at UWM, started with D2L, transitioned to Canvas. Canvas is like by far the best one that I've worked with so far. You can do things with it like last semester I presented on ePortfolios. That's just something that Canvas does really well. I was a pioneer for Canvas at UWM, so my courses were fully Canvas based starting in fall semester of 2018. But they, as you will see, have progressed quite a bit since then. So that's the big caveat, is I'm not an expert in Canvas. I've had to learn my way through this, and I've had a lot of help with these Cedal labs, and I'm still learning. So my goal here today is like keep things pretty short. I talked way too much last time I was here. I'm going to try and keep things short enough where we can do Q&A and do some workshop stuff, and hopefully, you know, start building some things. Okay. So first principles. When we're talking about course design in Canvas, what are the ultimate goals in using the features of Canvas to organize your course? To answer this question, I think it's necessary to take a step back from Canvas and just focus on course design in general for a minute. It might seem obvious, but starting with strong course organization on Canvas, that needs to be grounded in strong organization for your courses, full stop. Right? So you need to think about the syllabus first and foremost. Then you can start to think about how to adapt that syllabus using the features of Canvas. So for course design, what do we want? We want students to start somewhere, then we want them to end up somewhere else. From the beginning to the end of the course, we want students to pick up skills, accumulate knowledge. Our syllabi and all of their accoutrements in terms of like readings, assignments, activities, they all have to be calibrated towards developing this basic narrative or story, which is the course. You know, developing this story of getting from here to there. And that means strong intentional scaffolding built into the syllabus from class to class, from week to week, from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester. The scaffolding develops complexity in terms of skills, but it should also develop complexity in terms of course themes. And so we should really seek to present a coherent, unified thematic structure to the course. I'm trained in literature, so I tend to think in terms of stories. That's how I approach syllabi also. And so I think every course should tell kind of an interactive story. Good stories develop themes at the beginning of the course, and good stories develop themes at the beginning, and they develop those themes throughout the duration of the telling, and they end up somewhere. They end up in unexpected places sometimes. But with hindsight, those places should always kind of be present at the beginning of the story or the beginning of the course in this case. So the upshot here is that Canvas as a platform can substantially enhance the storytelling of your syllabus. But the storytelling itself has to happen in the syllabus itself. It has to happen in the syllabus first. So what is going to be on the syllabus? I kind of shot through some of this stuff, but what's the big picture? Overall story of the course. How is the story going to be organized in terms of a beginning, a middle, and an end, sort of classic Aristotelian storytelling structure? What's the logic of the plot progression from start to finish? And then the fine details, how this would play out. Like what contents are planned for each week, which weeks are connected into units based on connected content, what course lessons transition between different units in the course, and which assignments open and close those units. Again, in brief, how's the course scaffolded in terms of the theme, the big picture, and also the content and the skills. So what do you need for a course? What are we actually organizing here in terms of content? These are a few things you probably could add to this list. One of them would be the course theme. You know, you'd want to sort of introduce the theme and have that run throughout the course in various ways. You'd of course want dates, due dates, and things like this available in the course organization. Readings would be obviously something to consider putting into your course organization. Assignment prompts, assignment examples, drop boxes for assignments, and any and all supplementary material. I think that this is a decent starting list for all the things that you need to juggle. These are all the spinning plates that you need to figure out how to organize on your Canvas course. So what I'm going to do now, before I go to the conclusion, I'm just going to show you how my courses have evolved in Canvas over 3 or 4 semesters, and try and explain my thinking along the way. Can I just like minimize this?
Oh yeah, it's just escape, yeah.
Okay, so this was fall 2018, so this was this is my pioneering semester as a Canvas pioneer. And what I did here, at least the thinking was that I had a good syllabus, I figured at that point. I had really taken a lot of time with the syllabus. It developed themes, built assignments on top of one another. I thought it was really scaffolded. So I think my big flaw in the first iteration of this course on Canvas was that I over-relied on the syllabus, and I tried to kind of replicate the syllabus just on Canvas. And that was a mistake, because this is a different platform. Anytime that you're adapting things between platforms, you need to, pay attention to the specificities of that platform. I didn't do that here. So here's what I did do. I started off with, basically I used modules to replicate the syllabus. And so, you've got a module here, which is the syllabus and the daily schedule. And then I had a module with assignment prompts, all the prompts for all the assignments throughout the semester. I thought that should come second in case, students were, what would students want to see first? Syllabus is most important. Then you go to prompts so they know what all the assignments are. And then examples, I get a lot of questions like, do you have examples for assignments? I thought that should go third. And then we come to the actual course organization, right? And you can see here it's broken up into modules. So like there are different sections for this particular course. I just broke those up into modules. The first section, how we got to now, I just introduced, so something like week 1, this isn't even really a piece of content, it's just a header, right? So I just did that, and then I indented things to try and make it more visually accessible. And then, if there were readings for that particular week, so I had the week at the top, then I had the dates, and then under the dates, I would have any readings and any later assignment due dates or other materials. So you can kind of see how that works, right? And you can kind of see probably how it doesn't work at the same time, because this is like a lot, And so I told students at the beginning of the semester, like, this is new, Canvas is new for you, it's new for me, so let's get some discussion going about it. And for that course, I didn't really get a lot of feedback on Canvas design, although I asked for it explicitly. But I knew that something wasn't quite right, because I kept getting these questions about, like, where do I find this or where do I find that? And I thought that it was pretty clear that it was on the syllabus, but I got enough of those questions where I started to take that seriously and started to think about, okay, what's the next move here for Canvas? So immediately after this, I taught a midterm class, health science writing, and that was online. And so I knew that I was going to have to do video lectures for that. And that forced me essentially to start experimenting with the pages structure on Canvas. So I kept some of the same features here. In fact, I kept most of the overall orientation. You start with the daily schedule, and then into assignment prompts, assignment examples, and then we go into the actual course organization itself. And this is a little bit different. Midterm courses are super accelerated, so I broke it down into days here as opposed to like weeks. And you can see that the same logic follows though. I basically just used modules for each day, and then I had a page at the top where you would click on this kind of page here, and it would take you to nothing but lectures, right? So there'd be maybe some brief description at the bottom of some of these, but those pages would essentially just contain the video lectures, and then all of the actual readings and assignments and so on and so forth would still be on the landing page here, right? And there's some rationale for this. I figured, like, put everything on the home page, because no one likes to click a bunch to get to where they need to be, right? So I was thinking, like, fewer clicks the better. I thought that would be easier for students, and it turned out that that was not the case. So I did the midterm class, I got familiar with the pages function, and then I started to think this is probably where we should be. We should be using the pages more. And this really sort of triggered the idea in my mind that when we're using Canvas, what we're really doing is building a website. As opposed to just replicating the syllabus, you are building a course website. And that's a lot of work, but when you get it up and running, it sort of really pays off. I remember when I was an undergraduate, what we would get for the course is like a one-page printed syllabus. Professors didn't have to like build a website for every course that they make, but that's where we're at now, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can do here that you weren't able to do previously, and I think it really is beneficial for students. So after this, I taught another 310 class, and that one I really essentially forced students to comment on Canvas. and I used one of my sections as guinea pigs. And I changed things week to week and asked like, what's the best structure here? Does this make sense to you? So on and so forth. I got some really good feedback from them on that. And that led me to the current course design, which I did this over the summer. And this semester, I get a few questions now and again about where things are and so on and so forth, but they're normal questions. Like it's a normal amount of questions. And I'm pretty happy with the way that this is set up right now. So I'll just walk through how I did it. I still keep the syllabus and daily schedule at the top because I think that that's really important. And I also keep the prompts and the examples at the top. But you can see here I don't list every prompt and I don't list every example here. They're pages. So if you follow the links to these pages, you can then get a list of links to all of the examples and all of the prompts and so on and so forth. And that's another area where I can do more. Like now that this is built up, I can go into the page for the examples and I can talk a little bit about each example. I can tell them what the example does well and doesn't do well, right? That's an iterative course design where I can go back and add things as time rolls on. But I think the foundation's pretty solid here. Okay, so back to foundation. It's the same, I'm still using the sections from the syllabus, right? There's that first section, how we got to now, and that builds the second section, science and society. But the way that I did it here is that I really had, this is essentially by week, right? So every week has its own page. So students say, all right, we're in week 1, let's go to week 1 and see what's here. I'm actually gonna pick a different example that has some more content. We'll start with week 5. Okay, we're in the second section, we're in week 5. And this isn't really great either, but basically I chose a theme at the beginning of the semester. This is a Science Technology Society course. So one of the things that we kept coming back to throughout the course was warehouses. I had recently visited the Amazon Distribution Center in Kenosha, and there's all this cool stuff with automation and worker rights and all this kind of stuff. So every week would have some kind of image or some kind of tie into this idea of warehousing and economics, capitalism, so on and so forth. So you'd have image linking back to the course theme, and in some cases linking to that theme for the week, right? So maybe I can find a better example here somewhere. Something like histories of technoscience, maybe. Right, so historical picture of an old warehouse, right? Still on warehouses, but this week's about histories, so archival photograph of a warehouse. Then on this course page, this is week 2, so then you've got this introductory text here, right? Just explains what we're doing that week, how it connects to the previous week, how it's gonna progress us forward in the semester, maybe a bit of thematic content, again, discussing how this warehousing thing, relates to the course materials for that week. And then I've got links at the bottom here, right? And every semester has basically the same structure for these links. Required readings come first, right? So there's always going to be the required readings first. If I have any in-class activities, things that they need access to for class, those would come second. Later in the semester, when we're actually having things come in, having things due, maybe this is a good example of that. That's all required readings. Anyways, you would have assignment drop boxes there too, assignments due, and then you'd have a link to the drop boxes. They can click on the link and that'll take them to where they need to upload assignments. Again, in class activities. I also included assignment prompts and examples on weeks where we were introducing assignments. I thought that was important. You have the prompts and examples on the landing page, but the more places people can find things, the better. Right? And if I am asking them to approach this like a website, then I think that every week should have everything that they need for that week. Right? And that was the basic idea. For health science writing, another course that I structured in a similar way, you would have links to discussion posts if those were due that week. And anything related to the course specifically for that week is just on that landing page. And I think that you can see that, you can literally see that the course is more streamlined on that landing page. And that just seems to be, it's decluttering, right? It's more accessible for students. It's not a data dump, right? just like a normal website. What do you want to get to? What do you want when you land on a new website? You don't want to be overwhelmed with information right away. You want just the ability to see the overall options available for sections, and then you want to click on those and get more information on the next page. So that was the idea, right? And there's a lot of work that I can do here still. I would like to keep building on all those individual course pages and add more content. I would like to introduce more recent, relevant, optional material. As the semester rolls on, I find articles, I can put them on the home pages, right, so on and so forth. But again, I think that this is a pretty good foundation for what I'm going to do next. I don't anticipate completely revising the course organization at this point. This seems to work well. So on this journey, what have I actually concluded? Good course organization is key to good course organization on Canvas. I do think that that's still true, right? If you have a good idea of where you want students to start and where you want them to end, if your syllabus is divided into thematic units that build on one another, if the assignments interweave and build on one another, you need that first and foremost before you start thinking about how to organize things on Canvas. The second thing that really helped me was just thinking like Canvas is building a website. That really helped me to understand what I was doing with it and how to use the different features effectively. Keeping the landing page simple was the big one. That's the one thing that students like really keep me into. It's like, there's just too much stuff here. I pull it up and I don't know where to start, so on and so forth. Just indenting different things was not enough. So you keep that landing page simple and then build it out week by week. And then I also still think it's really important to foreground those themes week by week. So you have a sort of overall idea, and then each week you develop that idea in some way. That helps students understand where they are mid-semester, what are we doing here, like what's this assignment have to do with anything. Any kind of reminder that this is all part of a unified whole is a good reminder, and you can do that in Canvas in ways that I haven't been able to do it in D2L or Canvas, or sorry, Sakai or Blackboard. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Open it up for questions.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Good morning.
Good morning.
I've got a question about you putting the syllabus as the first thing.
Yeah.
As the first line item. Why don't you use the thing that says syllabus off to the left?
I find that, I still value putting that actual document first because I spent a lot of time on the syllabus and everything you need is in that document as regards course policies and things like that, right? So there are a few things, I do think that I should replicate that in the syllabus portion. I think it should appear multiple places. I also think like the assignment prompts, this is another thing that I want to keep building out, right? Like if I click on assignments right here, it'll just take you to the Dropbox. But I think that it should also take you to a prompt and again sort of replicate that content for each individual assignment. I haven't spent a lot of time with the actual syllabus function in Canvas. From what I understand, I mean, do you use that?
I use the syllabus
Yeah.
because all I have in the landing page is what we do every week. That's all we have, and then everything is on individual pages within there. All right, here's what you're going to read. Here's what you have to turn in. Here's what you have to get ready for next week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that would keep in the sort of general idea of keeping that landing page simple. I mean, if you use the syllabus function here, you can sort of like build out the same text content and everything that you would normally have on the print syllabus. Yeah, well, that's something I should consider for sure.
I
Again,
just put the
sort of,
print syllabus right there. I'm like, we got a link for it. Look for it. Read. You know,
right.
understand what this system is and keep it as simple as possible.
I think that's completely solid advice. You know, I'm still weirdly attached to having that syllabus at the top of the landing page, but it is something that should be on the syllabus page as well. I think that that's true.
Sarah?
Oh, I was curious, you mentioned a couple of times how you scaffolded the content, but also the assignments. And I
Yeah.
was wondering how you queued that from week to week or unit to unit using pages. So do you, like if they're building an assignment, do you put it multiple places? How are you scaffolding? What do you mean by scaffolding?
Yeah, like the assignments themselves are scaffolded. Like they build on each other just in and of themselves. And a lot of the work of making that scaffolding clear happens in class too. As far as how I do it in Canvas, I think a lot of that comes through in the thematic stuff, right? So when we're talking about and what's a good example? Like there's a movement midway through the course where we start talking about science and technology in terms of social context. And then in that section, we do, that's when we start doing research on sort of working group topics and trying to think through social applications of different technologies and things like that, right? And then there's a switch in the class into the next unit, which is communicating technoscience. Like how do you take your expertise and communicate that expertise to a general audience? And that's where you get assignments that are focused on audience analysis and things like that, right? And so there's an idea here that, and maybe it's a little bit too implicit right now, but you conduct the research and then you use that as the basis for thinking about who needs to have access to the research, who needs that information to make policy decisions, and so on and so forth, right? And so it's kind of threaded through there. It's not as explicit as I think you're sort of driving at.
So if you were, in face-to-face classes, it's so
Yeah.
nice, because you can say, we did this assignment and this
Yeah.
leads to this. If you were teaching all online, how would you, I'm asking because I struggle with this, right? How do you help them understand what they're actually learning and how they're growing?
The way that I did that for my online health science writing course is I would have a brief video lecture on exactly that. So there'd be like a 5-minute intro lecture where are we at in the course, and I would do that almost every week. And that's fine, if you can rely on students to watch that 5-minute video, then that'll do some of the work for you. But I think it's an interesting question in the sense that is there a way to more explicitly tie together and explain the scaffolding of the assignments in some aspect of the assignments themselves? That might happen on the assignments page, it might be built into the prompts more explicitly. I think that that's another thing that we can pull out of Canvas if we take questions like that more seriously. Yeah. Anyone have any suggestions on that point? Yeah.
Well, I was thinking if you, depending on what kind of assignment it was, and what kind of feedback they received, as you were giving them the next prompt, I don't know how easy it would be to send them back to that feedback.
Yeah,
that would be good. Because if you're saying okay, you did this thing and I gave you feedback on it, and now this next thing is the next level,
Mhm.
make sure you go back and revisit, but I don't know how you would link them specifically to that feedback.
Yeah.
You can send them the grades page, that's a game I play sometimes, but I don't know the fastest way for a student to get back to your comments.
Because I will tell them, go back and look at the feedback for this next assignment, because the rubric is exactly the same for paper 1 and paper 2. And I would say 60% of the students actually look at the feedback and incorporate some of the changes.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's stuck, and then I'll use announcements. I didn't think about video lectures, but I'll use announcements and say, last week we did this is how it builds on, what we learned. But it's hard to get them to make those connections without, you don't know what they're seeing.
Yeah, and I've noticed too
Reading or
that
not
sometimes I can go a little crazy on announcements too.
Yeah,
that
and
can
I don't
get
wanna do
lost,
that
right?
either.
So I try and keep all content stuff elsewhere. Yeah.
Christy,
Well, I just hadn't thought about this, because I'm like 60%, that's really great. I wish I had that. In my 100 level class, they're not paying that much attention, and my 300 level class, maybe it's closer to that. But what I've done in one of my classes, but it's face to face, so
Mhm.
it's different than this, but I feel like you could do this on an online environment, where I ask them to respond to the feedback. Like, okay, so look this up, here's this in-between assignment of respond to the feedback, what do you understand, what do you not understand? I can't remember the exact questions that I'm using, and it's a particular kind of assignment. But then we just do it in class, and most people, I tell them they need to have devices ahead of time, if not, let me know and I'll print them a copy. And they take 15 minutes and they write something, and then I comment on it. But you could easily do that in an online environment. I
Do
feel like
they-
reflections,
Yeah.
but the responsibility on the student to go, oh, I need to look at my work and I need to synthesize this. Oh, now I see what I'm learning. And then later I also like to ask, so what did you learn? To see if they can articulate that.
Do you have them submit that as a standalone document or as a reply on to the previous grade?
But it's based on a very, I have this very simple in-class writing rubric
Mhm.
that is check plus or check minus. Check minus is you hardly made any effort, and rarely does that ever happen. And check is you responded in complete sentences, you made some effort, and check plus is you were really thorough. And in my upper division classes, they almost always get check pluses, because if they're in the classroom already, they're really trying. And they may not understand everything, but that's okay. It's very much an effort kind of thing, of did you read it, are you showing me that you read it, and you're trying to grapple with this stuff. And I learned this from Tony Sikong.
Okay.
Tony was like, reflection for this, reflection for that. I was like, you're right. But it's taken me years to really implement it, some of the what Tony was talking about.
And I can't remember where I heard this from, and it might have been here, but I remember hearing some instructors doing feedback and giving the feedback to the students, but no grade, just the feedback. And then the student would actually read the feedback, and then they would give them a grade. Or they'd give them feedback and say, well, what grade do you think you should get based on this feedback? And then they have to really engage with it, and then their grade is on the line all of a sudden for them to get, to read the feedback. Now their grade is on the line, and so then they take that a lot more seriously. They would get like a short little paragraph of why they thought they should get a grade that they should get. So separating the feedback and the grade, because sometimes they just flip to the last page if it's like an old-timey hard copy and look at the grade and that's it. But if you can separate the two, now all of a sudden the feedback becomes much more integral and important, and then the grade. But I also and I used to do this as well in my classes as well. I do a 5-minute lecture overview of like what was going on and how did people do? What were some of the big themes I saw? And I kind of got to the point where like, nobody's gonna watch this. And I quit, and then everyone was like, wait, where's the video? Like, well, are you watching this? Like, yeah, watch this all the time. I'm like, oh, okay. So I mean, but those are just some ideas that I remember hearing, video or separating the feedback and the grade that I thought could be really interesting based on that.
So less a question, but more a discussion. As you were showing your Pioneer semester with the long homepage, I was like, this is exactly what mine looked like.
Right.
And I'm guessing every time somebody starts Canvas, that's where they end up. So as everyone is adopting it in the spring, like how could we help people like avoid that first semester giant homepage? Like, how do you get the word out of pages and modules and good design to people who are super, super busy doing lots of other things? One thing, so and kind of related to last week, as I was watching online, going in and out and being thankful for the flexibility that was built into Active Teaching Lab, I had just made a super cool page for one of my courses. So what if we had like a best Canvas page contest?
Ooh, that would be
Oh,
awesome.
that's great. Where
With big money behind it. Link can sponsor it.
Yes. No, but like a fun way for people who are already using it to contribute their stuff, and then open it up to the rest of campus and say like, people who've already been using it have solved these problems that you're gonna have. Here's a fun way. Maybe let people who haven't adopted yet vote on it. Like, I don't know.
Ooh, that's good, because then they're looking at different things and then processing.
Yeah, I mean, there's still gonna be a group of people who just won't play the game and won't go there and won't look at it.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a giant homepage forever. But I don't know. It's the end of the semester. I'm just trying to solve the world's problems.
Yeah, well, what else are you gonna do?
We're very close. It's just the commitment for Lang we're waiting for here.
No, that's really interesting. I should
You're gonna
see.
get a bagel as a prize.
Yeah,
That's it.
I would do it for a bagel.
You can have an extra bagel. No,
Maybe choose the cream cheese.
we should look at the Teaching and Learning Symposium and
Yeah.
maybe in the foyer have a TV and have them flip through, and people can have a little voting station and look at different pages. So maybe all of you should submit some of your best pages, and submit what you think is a really good page to me, and I can maybe see if I can. I can't promise anything, so take no more than like 3 minutes of your life. But that would be really cool. So if we got some traction on that, I could maybe see if we could get something going. I can't promise because seems to be all by the seat of our pants here right now. But still,
Isn't everything?
Isn't that what teaching is?
we don't tell that to the students. But send me some links and I'll see what we can show, and that would be a really cool place to do it. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anne. That's awesome. I had another question for
Can I just respond to that
Oh,
too?
yeah.
I mean, the other thing is just on a more local level, like you just share your course with people in your department, especially if you're teaching a similar class. Like if you give them the template for Canvas, they can change it however they want, but that takes some of the time pressure off because it takes a lot of time. That's the big barrier, is that it takes a lot of time to build up something like this. So if you can just share the basic template, that can help people figure out what you're doing and then adapt it for their own purposes.
That's really good too. That's that grassroots.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Feedback for
Yes.
students. How do you think? What do you think was the best method of going about to get quality feedback from students?
I force them to write feedback in class.
So go through that, unpack that a little bit, please.
I told them, so I picked one section that personality-wise seemed okay with whatever. Like they seemed like a pretty chill section and open to different kinds of things, right? And at the beginning of the semester, like once I'd sort of picked them, I said, look, we're gonna be co-pioneers, right? And so I'm gonna ask you week by week how things are going, and I'm gonna change the organization week by week, and you can tell me if it's horrible or if it's closer or what, right? Hot, warmer, hot kind of thing. And we just did that till the end of the semester until I sort of realized that what we were looking for is that simplified landing page and those kind of like website pages that have all the content within them. That's what I did.
What was some of the feedback they gave you along the way? Like, what were some of the things they said they really liked?
A lot of it was stuff that they didn't like.
Okay,
More
what
than stuff that
didn't
they did like. It was the confusion and the clutter, and the fact that things were not in that original sort of module-based design, that it wasn't clear where things were that they needed to access. And so, my mind was like, well, the prompts are all here, the
Right.
examples are all here, but then to get to the other stuff, it's just so much scrolling. Right? And they really hated that scrolling stuff, so I tried to minimize that most primarily.
Were they mostly accessing it from phones or computers?
That's another thing, is that I get the sense that it was mostly phones. So the streamlining, like this might work better on a desktop, but like I think most of the time they're doing it on the phones. So at least that's what I would say in class. I would say like, all right, take a look at this. How does it look to you? And then out come the phones, and they're looking at it on the phones. And so you have to keep in mind that that's a big portion of the student audience is doing it through their phones. Even now with peer reviews and stuff, like they're doing a lot of it on their phones, and so that streamlining is really necessary when you're dealing with a smaller screen. And yeah.
I'm afraid we're gonna have to cut it short. This was a great discussion. Thank you so much for your participation, everyone. Thank you, Nate, again, so appreciate it. And that's a really good segue as well into our activities today, because really what I wanted us to really focus on is really take what we were talking about last week in designing pages for how students are going to read it online, and also mixing it in with what Nate was talking about today as well, and really thinking about your course as a website as well. This is not just the continuation or an evolution of my syllabus. This is a website. This is something that's entirely different, and helping us to really rethink that to make the most out of the technology that we have. And so I have on the front page just some resources, some ideas that help you design, and really design from a web-based focus. And if you're looking for some good design ideas as well, I have some sources on the back too that you could check out. And the good one, this is one that gets referenced all the time, is Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think, a common sense approach to web usability. This has nothing to do with education, absolutely nothing. It's all about web design and user experience, UX. The library, get it from the library, or you can do a cheat sheet, and I looked up a pretty decent lessons learned from the book Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. So there's like a little bit, if you want the crib notes of it, or the overview of it, that's where that is. And you can see if you want to dive in a little bit deeper. But that's a really kind of a standard text on user experience that I keep on coming across. And it's like it came out in like the early thousands, and it's still applicable today because it's just good design. That's what it's about. It doesn't matter about the shininess of it or the changing in how web design goes. But to think about web design, I came up with a activity for today. So if you go to the website, though the instructions are on the back as well on in-lab activity 1, but you will need to saddle up next to a person with a computer if you don't have one. So what we're going to do for the next 2 or 3 minutes is I have 4 websites right here I wanted you to look at. And we're going to talk about what we think those websites are doing well, what those websites are doing poorly, if those websites are usable, right? If it's obvious what content you're supposed to be consuming, what you're supposed to be doing on that site. So just think about the design element, right? We're going to strip back. This isn't where I'm trying to, these are purposely not educational resources. I want us to think about website and what makes a good web design. So we have 4 sites right there. Some of them are better examples than others. You'll catch on. So take 2 or 3 minutes, look over those, and then I want you to go sit next to somebody and talk with them about what you were seeing. And I had some discussion prompts on that in Lab Activity 1. And then we'll come together as a group at the end and discuss that and think about web design. So, awesome.
You ended up with
Oh, awesome. I thought it was. We're just doing it in that activity right now, so it's on the website. So it's that one right there. Yeah. You need a computer right now. Here, I can use this too.
Me neither. The cursor stresses me. Yeah, maybe I'm just.
You don't think that we can screw it. We obviously don't want better customers.
Just go watch it online in the digital after they can say.
Some people with disabilities like that.
Be more confident.
Like, this is just too much at once.
How's your battery?
Unless the Apple Page, it's shorter.
Canvas website.
No, it's on. Oh, that looks like.
I was just looking at this.
Categories make it.
Oh, okay, sure.
There's links somewhere.
So the link to the course is right here. Yep. Yeah.
We'd be worried for their future if they didn't.
And back with 4.
Times is a good choice.
And again, New York Times, the website that is their business now. Newspapers are pretty much gone down.
Although with that giant data, how do you think that would have to New York Times did the whole top chunk.
You don't need a subscription. You can just look at that.
No,
that land.
We're just talking about the
We were
ads.
we were having a design conversation here, and see, my philosophy is
What about
the internet.
take about a couple more seconds and then get together with a group if you're a partner, somebody sitting at the table with you.
Except for the information process.
But it's
I'm
just
not
that
giving it away.
briefly.
Okay, so we're.
That's the hardest part of these activities is getting next to someone.
Website more
They
usable.
did navigate, I think.
I say with Apple and Times, if it is
Definitely get my vote.
to find
Just
what I
read
want.
it.
This
This
is
is
like-
interesting,
it's
I
like
can
super
click
flashy.
and read more details.
Super
But it's
flashy,
weird.
but it's
Yeah.
not too it.
It's like when you follow the directions, it does take you somewhere.
This one,
which
I
is kind of
just
fun,
don't
but
know
I'm like,
what to do
don't
with
do
it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all. They, you know.
Right, so you should be discussing with somebody else right now.
Mediation.
Maybe next to someone. Agent, if you need to, you might have to move. I'm sorry. That's the worst part of these group activities. Having to get up.
Yeah. But this one is just
Nothing that
one of
gets
the
holding me together,
pages.
like, okay, they have
From
this
this.
thing for just all the stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm like, is that the map of the side? Because again, it's not the organizers. We're at.
Look at that. The speaker's getting awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
took me a minute to like help some things work, but it's a very clean.
Yeah.
Because you designed it.
I wanna know about that.
That's just different.
I hate
So it's
I
easy.
Same. I mean, it's been interesting to look at, but I mean, I feel like, okay, I don't want to.
I'm using the students access to the school.
Am I sharing still, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I saw like it's really cool. It's a digital design.
This is interesting and kind of a nice. The clutterness of it.
Right.
The clutter and the movement, I was just like, oh,
I guess that's
What it's all about.
Yeah.
it's calm.
So their design company who says like
Syllabus
these
is
great
not-
designs.
Because I had to do my time thing, time to it, I hate to. I don't know, I don't even know what to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like something I look at. Did you all live on the road?
I did.
Yeah. The headlines are clear.
Gives
Look
it
at
one-
old.
There's definitely things that you want to
Little
focus on, right? Size dictates kind of level of.
I didn't forget it.
I'm assuming that
There's nothing more here to get to the end of this quote mark.
The New York Times.
All right, so start wrapping up your conversations. I know it was short.
And then the ultimate, so it's like a blog,
So
like
sometimes
did
the
it.
format has to also.
I can't tell how official it is or if it's just like something that you're gonna find.
And I think it's
Yeah.
a position.
Yeah, columns.
David, the link to
Magic.
But it's not easy.
But then there's other stuff, you know, you can.
Yeah.
It's been very much-
Oh, there it is at the top. So if.
It's like the
I guess these.
I guess now the very top of the page is.
For a while.
Oh, here's all the things that you've contributed to.
So
these people all have this really prominent.
All right, so let's come back together and start discussing some of these sites. Last week, we were talking about designing text that was readable. Now we're thinking more about design and user experience, right?
If you scroll down, there's a.
So what do we think about these sites? We looked at 4 sites, and we looked at them really quickly. What did they do well? What did they not do well? Which ones were easy to navigate? Which ones were obvious as to what they were trying to do? So let's look at Apple first. What are we thinking about Apple?
Holidays.
They changed, like from yesterday, but yes, I was on here yesterday, like totally different. What was that? What did you say?
Oh, holidays, spend money.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's the big one. They're trying to draw you in, right?
E-commerce, they're trying to sell their product.
Yes. Where's navigation?
Top.
Top.
The top where people would expect it. This is
Where they're going to expect it, right? It's expanded. It's not the hamburger menu, right? But they don't have everything, right? Because they sell lots of different things, right? Like, okay, what Mac, right? Oh, well, we have options here, but we know that we're going to get to computers from right there, right? It's a simplified, it's streamlined, it's not a lot of extra text. Yesterday, it was what Apple does a really great job is using white space, and it's not just because it's white, but it's just empty space that draws your eye to something else, right?
Well,
Yeah, it's a very pretty design.
if you click on iPad, they have icons at the top and you can scroll down, right? So it makes it really visual and easy to
Right.
see. But if you go to the top, see
Oh,
how they
yeah.
have all the icons, so it makes it really
Yeah.
easy to find.
Looking for an iMac. There it is. Okay. Pretty freaking powerful. And again, they do a really good job of like they want you to be really immersed by, oh wow, look at this object that I'm looking at, and then you're going to find out the text at the bottom, right? So what Apple is doing a really good job of is it has different layers of information. It has the top level, really broad in scope, right? It catches your eye, it draws you in. A medium level, an introduction, right? Pretty freaking powerful. We're trying to describe this object. And then it has the detailed text down at the bottom, right? It's just like a museum. If you go to a good museum, they'll have really big text that are just the object, big text to kind of describe it for our passerby, and then text for me where I read every single word in the museum, right? So you have different different levels for different people. So that's what we want to be thinking about. We want to draw people in, and we can do that in our courses as well. It doesn't have to be everything, but just kind of thinking of layering information, because it doesn't matter how good your content is, students are going to skim part of it. And just anticipate that and try to make sure you put the most important stuff at top bill.
And just with Apple, you know, the very well-known brand and very well-known persona,
Yeah.
they are all about sleek, good design,
Yeah.
user experience, easy to use,
That's
right to the point, and to me, this high-end, no noise.
Yeah.
Because to me, noise means, you know, liquor store ad, lots of lowbrow, you know, low-end stuff, where they're like, all right, this is what we got.
That was your first option, was liquor store.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, you see the liquor store ad, and it's, you're all over the map.
Okay, all right. More experience than I, Bill. I don't know.
I got a popcorn.
I actually read the newspaper.
So here we have this other one, Rogue Creative. What are we thinking about this one?
I'm not cool enough.
You know, any innovation, you know, you can't be more than one standard deviation away from the mean, and they're like 6 standard deviations. You're doing something that I could not do. I could not scroll down on the homepage, and I'm like, you think you're good at design? You're living in your own world.
I'm not sure what this click and, oh, there's click and hold. That's what that,
It's
wow.
a lot.
It's a lot. I'm still not sure what they do.
They're a
100%.
design company.
They're a design company. Come on.
Design, if
There-
you scroll down.
I have to, okay, there we
Oh,
go.
there it is.
That small text. Where's my navigation bar? Oh, there it is. I had to think. I had to think about this, right? This company is making me think, and it's breaking the first law of web usability. Don't make people think, right? It should be obvious right away where the navigation is. It should be obvious right away what it is you want people to do, right? Now you're thinking, well, we're in academia, we want people to think. Yeah, absolutely. You want them to think about history. You want them to think about whatever topic you are teaching them. You don't want them to have to think about how on earth do I navigate this course? What is it the instructor wants me to do today or this week? You don't want them to think about the administration. You want them to think about the content. And the students only have so much of a cognitive attention span, right? They're only going to be able to stay focused for so long. You don't want them focusing on spending that energy, that mental energy, figuring out how to navigate your course like these folks. You want them to think about the course itself, right? So it doesn't matter if it looks really pretty. It matters if you have good content and it's organized in such a way that it's easily findable. All right, next example, New York Times. Right.
It looks like a newspaper.
Is that good or bad?
It's good because they are a newspaper. And one thing I do like is when you scroll down, you actually get to an end. There's nothing that pisses me off more than you're scrolling down and you get to the end and I'm looking for the menu bar at the bottom and then they just load up more content.
Sure.
Like, this is like the never-ending website. How can I find out who these people are?
Bill, they keep going here. Oh, they do everything.
And you look like Nathan's course and you're like, God, is this ever gonna end? Oh my God.
And it looks like a newspaper. Absolutely. Where is the most important stuff?
The top.
It's at the top. It's like a newspaper. Yeah, they do have an ad.
No, this is.
Yesterday I was noticing it would pop up like this. I was going to different websites. I think the New York Times does it about the best because their ad is at the top, but once you scroll past it, it disappears, and now you have a newspaper, right? Wall Street Journal has their big ad right here between the header and the content. And so that was kind of annoying. The Guardian was kind of all over the map. So I was looking at different ones. I think they did a really good job. Your navigation is right at the top, right here. It's the New York Times. It looks like a newspaper. You can anticipate how to navigate it. Most important stuff's at the top. You keep scrolling down, it's going to get less important. It has the 3 different levels of information. The big pull in, the picture, the top level stuff for people, and then the more detailed, and you can click on and get even more information. Right? It's really good. I think that was really good design. Now, I don't want to hit these folks too hard. Very obviously, I mean, this is not the financial backing of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. But what's going on here?
It's way different.
It's people that love Baltimore.
Hey, Baltimore's a great place, I'm sure. I've never been there, but I'm not sure if it, like, okay, so I have hire a magician. So, oh, I'm hiring magicians in Baltimore. Okay, wait, Comedy and Magic Society, it seems more like a blog now all of a sudden. I'm not sure what's going on. So you can see that New York Times has a lot of information, just like that Magic of Baltimore, right? But the New York Times has it really thought out of how they're going to organize it and they have really done a good job of not making me think how to navigate, not making me think what it is I'm supposed to come across.
And we had kind of talked about, it has the format of a newspaper, but it doesn't have all the text of when you're
Yes.
reading through a newspaper. So
Yep.
it's like you can get the whole paper in a view rather than having to click on multiple things, which is kind of like that Pages design that you did so beautifully.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah.
I was also, because we mentioned the mobile app,
Yeah.
so I've been going back and forth
Oh,
between computer and
Awesome.
laptop.
Thank you.
And the New York Times page effectively works on mobile. Of
Would-
course, it's a different layout,
Sure.
but it's still easy to see the headlines and scroll through, and you start with the most important news and you work your way down as you keep scrolling. And the Magic of Baltimore, the very first thing on the mobile, if you're looking at it on a phone, is that brick wall with a ton of pictures
Yeah.
is super tiny.
Yeah. You lose all of it. Yeah.
It's like that's the very first thing you see,
Yep.
and it's such a turnoff. And then it
Yes.
gets a little easier to read things after that, but
And that's important because your competition is the rest of the internet, and you said it's a turnoff,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
and that's that. Our students are interacting. You're like you want them to be into the course. You want them to want to be in the course as much as you can, or make it easy for them to be in
Yeah.
the course.
Yeah, and linking back to Canvas,
Yep.
also the look on the mobile app is significantly different from the look on desktop. And so as I'm thinking about course design, that pushes me to say, okay, how does it look? What is it like on the mobile app?
That's good. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to wrap this up. How can we apply some of these things that we are learning now to a course? Right. What are some of the principles? Like, what are we going to do? How do we take the New York Times or Apple and apply that to a course? How do we take the Magic of Baltimore or that design company and not do that? What are some of the lessons we can learn there? Yeah.
First, I think, and I haven't done this, but I think that I need to go into my courses and look at them on a phone.
Yeah.
I always look at them at desktop, and I need to look at them on a phone.
Test. Yes.
I also need to figure out how to integrate advertisements onto my pages.
Yes, that's the other one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Tasteful, but very few and they're really expensive.
Sarah.
I know I need to add visuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you pulled it up, the first thing I looked at was the picture, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll read the text. But in all of these, they have
It's
some
funny.
visuals to cue.
Absolutely. Having layered information so that you can direct the learner. Absolutely. Navigation, right? This is one I hit on a lot when I'm doing Canvas basics. Simplify your navigation. If you aren't using the button, it should not be there, right? Apple has a lot of products to sell. It doesn't throw everything out there on the navigation bar at the top, right? It simplifies it down to the essentials of what you need. So if you have navigation buttons that are not being used, the student shouldn't see them. Not because you're trying to hide something, but because you're trying to make it easy for them to navigate in your course, right?
That's changed because initially we couldn't remove them, right?
Yes, that was,
Okay.
but now it's different, so we can change them. We can't reorder them, but we can change them.
Okay, so that's good.
One step. Simplify navigation. I'm gonna say it. I think we should use the syllabus tool and not just have the syllabus as a PDF or a Word doc, because what does that Word doc look like on an Apple, or a mobile device? It looks like a really scrunched up Word document. Whereas if you use the mobile app and you put it in HTML, right, as a page, it takes some work. I think that would be really more accessible to students when they're on a mobile device, because that will shape appropriately. Yes.
So I built out my syllabus page with a bunch of Canvas pages.
Sure.
And use it like frequently asked
Yeah.
questions. So this first thing says the complete syllabus is available for download here.
Sure.
So they can still get the old school giant copy. But then there's just like, you have this issue, go here.
Yeah.
And then semester to semester, I just copy them and hopefully make appropriate updates.
Yeah.
But in large lecture classrooms, it has dropped my email questions so much.
Oh my goodness,
Just like,
that's awesome.
this happened, I'm like, there's a page for that, go find it on Canvas.
There's a page for that.
Yeah.
It's like a slogan. Awesome.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter how you format it, but I think putting it in a native way inside a Canvas so that it adapts to that mobile device, because I think what we're seeing is over half of your students are going to be primarily using a mobile device to interact with your content, and I think that's kind of playing out how we see. So there's always more, but I really think it's really important thinking about our course not as just a syllabus extension, but as a website. And I really thank Nate for bringing that to light and talking to us about that today. So thank you very much, Nate. Appreciate it. So we'll wrap it up. Our last one of the year. So please fill out the blue sheets. We'd really appreciate that. Feedback is so helpful. It's so important for us as we move forward and as we adapt this thing. So again, I can't force you like Nate did his students to give me feedback. But the more feedback you give, the more likely it is I'll bring bagels every time. So there's that too. So again, thank you so much for your discussions today. I really feel like I learned a lot, so thank you. And that's what active teaching is about, just learning new things, coming together as a community. And I also want to thank CEDAL again for the food. And thinking of thank yous, I really wanted to just give a shout out to everyone here for such a great semester. Thank you, Kathy Pinkowski, especially for all your work managing, setting up. Anything that I need, Kathy's always just there, and this could not be done without Kathy. So thank you so much, Kathy. I really want to thank as well Ed Price and Sarah McDonald. You really always help me every week. This is more than you know. I really appreciate your just being here. Dylan Bart for setting up. He helps me set up at night. I also want to thank all the wonderful speakers this semester, and most of all for all of you. So over 220 people have come this semester alone. So thank you so much, all of you. If it wasn't for the attendees and this, we really couldn't do this. So thank you for you. So thank you. Have a great break, everyone. And I hope again to see you next semester. So we'll see you in 2020 then. So take care.